Welcome. This is a segment from an episode on the spot. If you'd like to see the full episode, click on the link below. Continue supporting us. Enjoy. Yeah. So speaking of freedom, I think it's a very good segue. Because there's this running joke, whenever you find oil, America's going to bring freedom to you. So what's your take? Firstly, give us a little, because I think you're very close to it. Not close to it, but I think you're interested in it, and it's pretty evident. So would you just like to give us a little roundup of what exactly has happened with Namibia and this oil find? Because I do know in 2014 or 2013 we had an oil find as well. So what's different this time? I guess that's the question.
I think, as background, Shell and Total have drilled offshore very far in the south of Namibia.
Mm-hmm.
So basically in deep offshore blocks bordering South Africa effectively. And they've found oil, right? It's official. We all know that they've hit oil, which is great. And it's light oil from the looks of it, which is good because light oil gets you more money than heavy oil does.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's when you basically start refining it, you can get more output out of light oil than you can heavy oil effectively, which is why it's more valued.
Okay.
So that's very positive. And for us, that's very exciting because we had talks of finding oil previously, but I don't actually think there was oil. I think, Namibia's drilled something like 21 dry wells before this.
Yeah.
I think, what is it, Norway that drilled more than 30 before they hit oil there?
Yeah, I have no idea.
In the 60s or 70s. It's really positive, right? There's a find, and that's big news as it is. I think the potential for oil, obviously, our economy is really small, right? It's not even let's call it about 10 billion US, just over 10 billion US.
Mm-hmm.
If you start talking about hundreds of millions of barrels of oil, and let's not even use today's prices, let's use prices
from normalized prices, yeah,
from a couple of months ago, something more believable. Then you're still looking at easily the equivalent of Namibia's GDP, assuming you've got that much oil, right? I think the first thing is that what's really positive is that these are two majors, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're well-established companies. They've got, as far as oil companies go, they've got good reputations.
Mm-hmm.
So when they say they've got oil, I think we can believe them, we can trust them, and NAMCOR and government have confirmed at least, or have at least released the press statement saying that there's oil. So that's very positive. What this means now is, obviously there's a lot of questions on, is it commercial or not? That's the big if. That's the sort of the 50-50. It either is or it isn't. And if it isn't, I think things are still positive because there's been oil discovered. It's going to drive more exploration activity. And a lot of, exploration happens offshore. There is onshore exploration, but I don't think it's very likely. But the offshore stuff, it happens far offshore, but it still does generate revenue for government and for the country. There's a lot. To drill offshore, you're spending hundreds of millions of US dollars alone.
Mm-hmm.
And government does get something out of it. There's services withholding taxes. There's consumption from within Namibia. They bring in expats where they need the skills. Those expats spend foreign currency here as well, and they spend a lot more than most people would. So there are benefits to it, and it does put Namibia sort of on the map and say, all right, well, there's potential here, which is great. And so I think that's definitely something to sort of look forward to. There's government gets a lot of taxes from it. There's services withholding taxes, right? So if these majors now hire drill rigs, they hiring the service, they pay tax on that. So for the fee that they pay or that they rent effectively the drill rig for, government gets like 10% of that or something similar, right?
It's robust.
So for no work, government's actually getting and it's big risk, right? Because if you drill, you might find something, you might not.
Yeah.
And for a long time, we haven't found anything. If we do find oil, then it's all right. Is it commercial? All right. Let's speculate and say it is. Then it's very much down to a lot of technicalities. How much oil is there? Firstly, is it a lot? Is it very, very little bit? If it's very little bit, likely not commercial, especially because this is very far offshore, so it's off the coast, but it's also very deep underwater. And so, you need something very sizable for that to then start making commercial sense. But then it comes down to a lot of stuff, like how is the oil trapped, for instance? So is it, if you think of it as a say a lake almost, right? Is it one big lake, or is it lots of small lakes with things in between that's stopping you from getting to the others? If it's the latter, then it's obviously a lot more expensive to get it out, and then is it worth it? Is it I guess what impacts the value as well is it a sweet or sour oil? So basically how much sulfur content is there as well. Other things like the pressure as well. So I mean, is there a lot of pressure or not? If there's a lot of pressure, then you need high-end equipment to extract, which also makes it more expensive, and then your capital costs might become prohibitive. So there's a lot of things that are impacting, to what extent it might be commercial.
Right.
But let's just say it is. I mean, then Namibia's future changes dramatically.
Wakanda.
Well, I mean, it depends if we spend the money right.
Interesting. So there's one thing that just popped in my head. I've been reading a lot of commentary on this oil find, and it seems like there's a select group of people who believe that even though we found this oil, it's already been hijacked by international corporations. I don't think this is the case. And the proxy I use is even, diamonds. It's like we're part of the government actually owns diamonds in Namibia. They own a part of...
they own Namdib, 50-50,
exactly.
Right?
And they get taxes on top of that. So it's like you guys are basically eating into most of that revenue. So it definitely should impact Namibia in my mind if I just draw that parallel. But do you understand how, or can you explain to me why somebody would believe that even if it is a big commercial, like you said, light oil, and it's one big lake and not many different lakes, why would that not benefit Namibia significantly? Just to think of the other side of the coin before we go to the benefits.
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of money from these things, but a lot of people don't see that money, and that's why we tend to think that, right? Because the money goes towards government as a representative of the people, and then how government spends that money tends to be the issue, right? They spend it on a bunch of fancy new headquarters instead of making sure people have access to a school with classrooms and desks,
yes.
A hospital that works, they've got running water and electricity at home. Then people will say, well, obviously we don't see benefit from these things.
Yeah. Okay, I see. So they're already predicting that the government's going to squander whatever comes in.
And there's also this view that I mean, like our resources are being taken away, and I mean, at a very shallow level they are. But you've got two options, right? So I mean, same with our mineral, with all of our minerals, whether it's now something like oil, if it's diamonds or gold. You've got two options. You can leave it there, and we don't get anything from it, or we get it out, right? And we get a benefit from it. Especially, I mean, you want to get it out when it's profitable to do so you can get taxes and so on from it, right? If you want to take it out, you need someone who can do that. I mean, we don't have the skills or the finances within this country to do that. The oil regime, as it stands, the tax regime is actually surprisingly progressive for a country,
right?
Especially for.
Can you explain that? Because I have some viewers who aren't like.
Yeah, so I mean, if we think the tax system in Namibia is not very progressive, right? In general, I mean, we've got technically progressive income tax brackets.
So you mean that people who have more money get taxed more?
Yeah, and it's forward thinking, right? So I mean, right. So with personal income tax brackets, yeah, it is progressive, right? People who earn more pay more tax. And that's an argument I can understand, especially given our history. I don't think that's wrong.
If you enjoyed this clip, be sure to check out our main channel, The Spot. It will be linked below. Stay tuned for more clips just like these.